just going to carry on like the products that we have. For our products, we subdivide them into a few categories, but basically in flow rate. We have a small modules and we have a medium ones, and then we have a large ones. All right, so all similar in performance. Okay, all can be used in the pharmaceutical, in power plant, in microelectronics. Okay, so depending on the flow rate that you want. So different of the applications have a different flow rate. If you go to pharmaceutical plant, if you have a project of like 10 cubic meters per hour, it's already a big project. All right. But for 10 cubic meters per hour in microelectronics, is really, really small. That's because in microelectronics, the water demand is really high. So they are trying to look at flow rates of about, it could be 50 to 100 to up to 300 or 400 cubic meters per hour. So power plant is the one in the middle, where if you go to power plant sites, it's going to be an average of about 50 cubic meters per hour. So so this one I show you here is the MX series, okay, the small ones, and we call them the MX. It's really, really small. It looks like an RO vessel, and it could be like even shorter than that. The flow rates, it runs between the 30 to 500 liters per hour. It's really, really small. It's more for lab scale, for schools, for research, for like university labs. All right. So in Southeast Asia, in the Asia market, we don't really sell this. That's because it's mainly dominated by the microelectronics. So what we sell is more commonly, all right, it's very popular. There is a lot in Vietnam, a lot in the other regions surrounding Vietnam, like China, in Thailand. That is the LX modules. All right. So the LX modules, if you see from the picture here, there is a lot of the little box over here. So actually, for our modules, how we design the modules is very similar to a heat exchanger. There's many plates, and then we will clamp them up and we will tighten them. So it's what we call as a plate and frame style of the EDI. And we have a lot of kinds of flow rates. So what we label as the LX4, 10, 18, 24, 30 to 45. So these are just the various sizes of the LX module. We always look at the nominal flow rate, and you always design on the nominal flow rate. It can range from 440 liters per hour to 5.1. So the smallest LX module, actually is going to overlap the biggest of the MX module. So for the biggest MX module is around 500 liters per hour. Smallest of the LX module is about 440. All right. So if you have like flow rates in this range, I always suggest you to use the LX module. Okay, that's because in terms of piping, much easier for design and installation. Whereas for the MX module, how they run all of the piping, okay, is generally through the tubing. So it may be more complicated, if you have got to use the stainless steel tubing or flexible tubing. Whereas for the LX module, a lot of them, as I've shown you in the pictures, they would use all of the hard piping. Okay, and there are three kinds of the LX modules. Okay, there's the X series, there's the Z series, there's the hot water series. All right. I jump straight into the price. The price of the hot water is the most expensive. That's because all of the parts, all of the spacer material, the polysulfone, and the resins and membranes all rated for hot water. So that's why in terms of the cost, it's most expensive. And then after that, there is the X and the Z series. They are very, very similar in terms of the performance. All right. But you will notice that the X series is more expensive. Okay.
Yeah.
So the key difference that is between the X and the Z, okay, is that in terms of the materials of construction, all right, it's exactly the same. All right. So for hot water modules, they will use the polysulfone. So the polysulfone of the spacer material, when I say that it's polysulfone, I'm referring to the gray color spacers. All right. There is all these of the gray spacers that is going to hold all of the resins. All right. So in hot water modules, all of these gray spacers is made of the polysulfone. So for the polysulfone is FDA. That is FDA rated. A lot of the pharma plants they want to have this. But for the X and Z, it's not, okay? But it's also up to like drinking water standards. It is like NSF rated. All right. But the key difference that is between the two, the X and the Z, all right. So these are not FDA. So these are not the FDA modules. So the key difference is that the X module is halal certified. All right, and the Z modules is not. It's for general industries. Okay, so because we need to like halal certified on the modules itself, so it will cost a bit more. That's because there is more work that needs to be done on the module. Okay, just want to show you, if you want to have a halal, it's not like we can make them and we can put them on the shelf and keep stock, like how, if you go to computer shops, they're going to stock up all of the keyboards, all of the mouse and the USB. That's not how we do it. Okay, we built our modules that is based on demand. Okay, so if you have an inquiry, if you let Chris know, and then afterwards, and Chris is going to put into the forecast, and then if you tell him that, hey, I've got the order, I'm going to send you the order. So Chris is going to send your PO into the factory, and the factory is going to make them. It's going to require a certain amount of lead time. So a lot of times when you see the modules, itself, for the date tested, it's pretty new. That is because for our practice, we do not say that we will make like 1,000 units and keep them and try to sell them. All right, our units is always like pretty fresh out of the factory. Okay, so you need to let Chris know, if your customer is going to say, hey, I'm going to use the water in early next year. All right, so it means that you have to let Chris know, and then he has got to forecast it. You have got to place the order that is early. You've got to also consider, on the freight time, on the installation of the time, and then so you can be sure that your customer can make use of the water, that is on a timely basis. And then I'm going to show you the Z modules, for the Z modules, all right, not halal certified. All right, if the customer wants to have a certificate for the halal, we can also provide. It's going to it's going to be shown here. It's going to be renewed on a yearly basis. Okay. So if your customers, they have no special requests for being halal, a lot of times the customers that is going to request for halal, that is in Malaysia, in Middle East, in Indonesia, but also in some cases where, if the end customers is from a Muslim, is from a Muslim place, I have some customers in Japan, that is asking for the X. That is because the user itself is Muslim. They require all of their products made to be, free from like animal fat and this and that. All right, but if you don't have, you go for the cheapest one. All right, and the Z modules is always the cheapest. And we also have a bit of an improvement for the Z modules. There's a bit of a chlorine improvement. Instead of 0.02 ppm of chlorine, it can handle up to 0.05. Okay, so it's also that is also slightly better in a sense. It's more tolerant. Okay, but still, the customer need to ensure that in the pre-treatment there is like equipment to make sure that the chlorine is being removed. You know, it's always done through the activated carbon or the sodium metal bisulfite. All right.
Yeah.
So any questions on all these 3 modules and this and that, you know, on the LX series? I like to hear, you know.
No, I think in Vietnam, more the customer will be use LXZ because I think customer not require the halal certificate.
Yeah, so that's going to be good. All right. Okay. But then it's to just to let you know, if you want it, okay, we also have the module for you to fulfill on the requirements.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Oh, okay. A lot of all these details, I'm not going to cover it, you know, until you have an actual case. And then we also have the VNX modules. Okay, so VNX modules, the market where you're going to sell into, like power market, it's like pulp and paper or like biomass. You know, in Thailand, a lot of like sugar power plant, you know, a lot of like biomass and this and that. So all these places, you know, it's going to use like flow rates of around like 50 cubic meters or more. So it will be more suitable for you to use the higher flow rate modules. We have a lot of, you know, we have a lot of the R&D through the years since we started on the VNX series. It's very complicated part numbers. Okay, I'm not going to confuse you, you know, but I'm just going to quickly share with you, you know, it's like throughout these years how we improve it. All right. Okay, I want you to focus on the numbers over here. Okay, so you know, if you see there's VNX, all of our high flow rate, we term it as VNX. All right, and then afterwards there is going to be you know, there's going to be some of the special stuff, you know, there's like VNX Max and Mini. So all these are the subdivisions, there is the models that is within the VNX family. So, you know, if you see all those in rate, it's obsolete. And if you try to focus on the number, you know, if it's 50, it stands for 50 GPM. If it's 25, it stands for like 25 GPM. So over the years, you know, we make improvement of the spacers, you know, and then we came out with one that is also the same footprint, exactly the same footprint. Okay, so that is like throughout the years, all of our VNX, it looks like the same housing. All right, so in the same housing, we try to tweak, we try to improve it from 50 GPM, we improve it to 55. So there is an extra of the 5 GPM. That is not a lot of improvement. Okay, that's because you know, if you need only 1 or 2 modules, you know, you will not see a lot of needs for the 5 GPM, you know. But then if you go to like Samsung or like the LG display, you know, if you have 6 modules, so if you have 6 times 5, that is 30 GPM more. So there will be a kind of a flow rate where you know, I can make use of 1 less module. All right, and then until now we have the VNX Max. There is no number here, unfortunately. Okay, but for VNX Max, in the same of the housing itself, it went to 66 GPM. So from 2004 to 2023, like now, we improve it from 50 to 55 to 66 of GPM. In terms of performance, okay, all these are older performance. We improve it into the EP series. Our EP is what we call it as our standard module. So EP stands for enhanced performance. All right, so we also tweak the resin, try and make it better. That is because over and over the years, okay, for microelectronics, they see the need, you know, for like better quality water. You know, that is because when they are trying to make wafers, they want to squeeze like more of the transistor, all of the transistors on to the same piece of wafer itself. So a lot of the focus, you know, is to ensure that the water is clean enough to try to wash out all of the wafers, you know, and make sure that there is no of the contaminants on the transistors itself. So we have we have our special modules. It's called the EX, and then there is, and then at this stage now, we have the VNX Ultra. So all focus on silica and boron removal. In terms of the structure itself, you will notice that for the LX modules, it's like rectangular. That is like in a cube shape, but for VNX, there is a round shape. So in general, it's bigger. It holds more resins. That's because the flow rate is huge, but also it's done in the same style, all plate and frame. There's many plates, and then we will tighten them up like a heat exchanger, so it's going to be leak free up to 7 bar. Okay, in terms of the modules, I have highlighted all those in white and in yellow. So the white one, that is the EP, all these are our standard modules. Okay, and then for those that is in the yellow column, that is the high end. So why is that so? It's because if you look at the resin market itself, okay, in the past, in microelectronics, the people is going to have a standard pre-treatment, like there's like a media filter, activated carbon, it goes into an RO system. Okay, and then after the RO, it goes into a conventional mixed bed. So all this mixed bed is going to make use of like regenerable of the resins. So if the quality of the mixed bed starts to go down, it's going to stop. It's going to go through. It's like a regeneration process. Okay, so all this is like normal resins, where we will use them in our standard modules. That is the EP modules. In the microelectronics, after the mixed bed, okay, there is the end of the makeup loop where it goes into the polishing loop. In polishing loop, people will use special grade resins. It's what we call as the non-regenerable resins. So it helps to remove all of the contaminants into the ionic level, into the PPT levels. So all those resins, all of the special grade resins, we will use them in our high-end modules. So it can also try to handle all of the stuff into the PPB or the PPT levels. All right, so that is, it's like we work in the same way as the resin suppliers. There is normal grade, there is high grade. Okay, so if you see the high grade one, also will give you a higher set of the recovery. Okay, but most importantly, in terms of its ionic removal, silica and boron is what they look at in microelectronics. It's better for all of the high-end modules. Okay, so the EX up to 99% removal, for the Ultra up to 99.9%. And then in our standard series, okay, our EP series, there is a few kind of flow rate. There is the EP, is standard, that is about 12.5. All right, in a module length of about 2.2 meters. Okay, and then afterwards, we also like try to improve. It came out in 2018 on the VNX Max. In the exact footprint, we squeeze extra 2.5 to make it into a 15 cubic meters per hour. So these two modules are interchangeable. All right. And we design the modules in a way where, if they have a footprint issue, if they have no space for a new system, they can always try to replace the modules into our VNX Max and get a higher flow rate in the same footprint too. And then there is also the VNX Mini. It's about 12, similar to the EP. All right, slightly less only, but in terms of the length, it's a bit shorter. So all of our R&D, for VNX module is targeted in a few aspects. In terms of performance, we want to keep like getting there is better performance. We also want to increase the flow rate, in the same footprint. And then that is it. Our R&D is still continuously trying to improve the modules and squeeze more flow rate in the same housing too. All right, so to pair with our EDI modules, we also have our power controller. There's some people who call it the rectifier. So that converts the AC into DC. All EDI modules, all of the IONPURE modules, is going to run on DC current. All of the power supply, in everywhere in the world that is in your house is all the AC supply. So there needs to be a transformer. There needs to be a power controller to convert from AC into DC. But what is so special on our controller is that we are evolved in a way where it doesn't need to have a transformer. All right. So our DC controller or the rectifier is going to take in the 3-phase power supply straight from the factory, straight from your job site, and then it's going to convert into the DC form, and it's going to power up the module. It also comes with a touch panel display, where if you want to monitor on the voltage, current, and resistance, it can be done. If you want to do a remote control or remote monitoring, okay, our controller also have the capability. It handles 4 to 20 milliamp signals. So if your plant, and says, okay, I want to make use of my SCADA system, to send a signal and tell the controller to run. Yes, it's possible. Our controller have the features. I can teach you how to make use of that. It's too complicated now. That is only the first meeting, so I'm just going to stop here. We have special modules for 1-pass RO. So all those modules I talked to you in before, there is the LX and VNX. It works best in 2-pass RO. All right. In Vietnam market, water is always fluctuating. All right. So, if you want a good performance, if you go Samsung, if you go to LG, everyone is going to use a 2-pass RO. Okay, but if for some reason, if you can't use a 2-pass RO, there is, that is based on like space constraints and stuff like that. We have special modules, there is the CDIT, that is going to go up to 100 microsiemens, can handle like much of higher of hardness and also the silica, but then the drawback, is that the flow rate is going to be lower. There's going to be a bit of a lower recovery. All right, so it's not it's not the commonly sold product in our profile. So what we always sell, and we have a extremely good track record, is the VNX, that is the EP modules, and also the VNX Max modules. So that is because I think by default in Vietnam, a lot of them is going to use 2-pass RO. So these are our standard ones. In terms of the price, okay, if you compare on the CDIT and our standard modules, that is the EP or the Max. So this one, in our, okay, it's going to be the cheapest. The EP and the Max, in terms of pricing, is going to be the cheapest. That is going to be the lowest among all. All right. Any questions? All good?
I think no. Thanks.
Yeah, so I have so that is pretty much the end. We have I have like 15 minutes more just to quickly show you. We have an online site. If you buy membranes from Dow DuPont, they have their own software and do all of the projection. We also have our own software. Okay, our software is an online one. There's no need for you to download and install it. Okay, you will have to register this online. Chris is going to approve it. All right, it's gonna take like almost 1 week. And then in this page, you can run all of the projections, for all of your customers. But I just want to quickly share with you in the 5 minutes, on what is so unique on our projection software. And that is because it tells you the power consumption. there is many times if the user say, I've not used EDI before, I'm not sure. Okay, so I don't have to spend money on chemicals anymore, but I've got to spend on AC power. So what is the power consumption of all of the modules? So if you run a projection, it can tell you what is the cost, what is the power consumption. All right, and then the user is going to know on how much they pay for the power. They will be able to work out on its operational cost. Okay, and I can fully assure you, its operational cost, its OPEX cost, many times lower as compared to chemical costs. If you use the conventional mixed bed, that is not just resins, that is not just the chemicals. It's about the storage of the chemicals. It's about the safety equipment. A lot of things that you need to consider. Okay, but for EDI, very, very simple. This is, it's all chemical free. So it's very good for the end user. All right. Any other questions that you want to know? Chris, have I missed out on anything that you might also want me to cover?
I think more or less it's pretty comprehensive. I think that's what the agenda for this morning is. Lam, over at your side, would you want to clarify anything? Especially, I think now we are pursuing the WISOL project. Do you have any questions on that specific?
You want to clarify the WISOL project?
Yeah, I mean, do you have any questions? I mean, when it comes also to installation or even troubleshooting the modules, do you have any questions, or you or your team?
I think now I need more time to discuss about with my partner, because for this project I sell this module to my partner. They integrated to water treatment system and then bring to WISOL. So I think when my partner build the water treatment system, so I need no help at that.
Okay, so like what Pan has mentioned, that we do have all the P&IDs. So if you and your partner will need some of the guidance on how to put all the instruments together, do reach out to us again.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I don't have much, so I hope that your inquiry, is all good, and then we can progress on. So Chris and me, I think from time to time we will go to Vietnam, on business trip, and then we might consider one at the end of the year. I think maybe October or like November or so. So it's going to be good, if we can meet you over there. I can give you another training. And trust me, this is not going to be the first. So this is not going to be the last training. That's because we will try. I will try to keep on training and then also keep updating on like the knowledge of the EDI, especially in terms of the aftermarket support. So going on in the next 6 months or 1 year, I think Chris and I will also try to reach out to you and make sure that you are all comfortable on our product line. All right.
Yes.
Yep. So all good. Well, I'm done on my part. I'm going to hand it back to you, Chris. If you want to do a quick summary of this training.